Yeah, we back. Yeah, we back. Now, today, man, we're going to be talking about Emmanuel Macron. Yes, Emmanuel Macron, the president of France. Now, Emmanuel Macron recently, he made a statement basically finally addressing the geopolitical realities that France has been facing on the African continent. As we already know, been kicked out of multiple African nations, embarrassed, an absolute failure as it relates to the fight against terrorism. But now we have finally received a statement. He has finally acknowledged and spoken to the people about what he feels about the situation. And to be honest, man, I am blown away. I'm taking it back. I am highly entertained. Like I told you before, brothers, our enemies are very arrogant. And in this situation, it is no different. Our enemies have an arrogance like you wouldn't believe. But as we already know, the geopolitical landscape has changed in recent times. The black man has been diversifying his partnerships, revising old contracts, and shaking up the global economy. And for some of our enemies, even though the ship is capsizing, even though the downfall is on the way, they are still trying to maintain a good face. So now let's get into it, man. Emmanuel Macron, he's going to be giving you his thoughts, his opinions on France's position and situation in Africa as we speak. Now let's get into it. Run the footage. I'll be right back.
Our role is changing in Africa, but it is what we wanted. Because the world is changing in Africa. Because public opinions are changing. Because governments are changing. And because we have decided sovereignly. In February 2023, after several years of gradual changes, or to rebuild a partnership based on respected partners who must explain their needs, express them, and towards whom we must help with training, help with equipment, help with intelligence, help for specific operations, but change from the logic that was ours in too many countries. From installed bases, excessive, permanent, which fostered ambiguities, as we know, when the political life had to change, and which no longer led to a mature partnership, because it was no longer based on the expression of a clear, identified need. And so it's the strength of our armies to think about this and to revisit established habits. I want to thank the Minister for all the work that has been done in this area, and thank the Joint Chief of Staff. You are doing well, my General, and I know the determination and courage it takes to sometimes disrupt these established habits.
Man, we back. Oh my God. Like I told you, man, our enemies possess an arrogance that you would not believe, man. Even the most audacious and eccentric black man doesn't have the level of arrogance that our colonial enemies have, bruh. Now, my favorite part of his little speech, right, was when he said, "We have decided sovereignly." Man said this was a sovereign decision. We have decided sovereignly. My God. This man said our role is changing in Africa, meaning that our influence is currently being reduced, right? Our influence is currently being dismantled, right? But this is what we wanted. The arrogance. But the most honest part of his little speech, right? The most honest part was when he said, public opinion is changing, right? The public sentiment is changing. And not only that, but governments are changing. That was probably the only little bit of honesty, a little nugget of truth that he injected into his whole little spiel, into his whole little speech, right? But everything else was just arrogance, trying to maintain a good face, trying to seem unshaken by the turbulent conditions. I understand, bro. I understand. You know, you're a leader. You got to maintain composure. But, you know, listen, I know I've been dunking on Macron, but we got to be honest, man. Macron came to power during a very complex and hostile time, right? He came into a very complex and hostile environment where he tried to balance out France's old colonial way of doing things while trying to step into the modern times in terms of how the relationship is structured. He was supposed to be the one that revitalized France's image, because France got a long history of slavery, human trafficking, colonization, political assassination. And because of that, and because we have access to information, there's been a lot of anti-French sentiment amongst the youth. We now had the ability to look up information, examine the world around us, ask ourselves, why are things the way they are, right? Why do these guys have a military base inside of our country? Why do we have statues of these white guys inside the country that were colonial administrators 100 years ago? Why do we speak French in the first place? We don't live in France. Why are French troops here under the guise of fighting terrorism when terrorism has only increased since their arrival? If we have the natural resources and the raw materials, why are we sending it to France? And why are we buying it back as finished products? Why does France have access to our uranium to power their nuclear reactors while we have electricity shortages? Why does France interfere in our internal political affairs? And why do they support leaders who do not support the interests of its own citizens, but instead support the interests of France? Why are we taught more about French history and French literature and French culture in our own schools than about our own African heritage and our own ancestral heroes? Why is the French media like RFI and France 24 still influencing public opinion in our countries? You see, these are the type of questions that a young person is asking themselves, right? They got the internet, they on social media, they asking themselves these questions, right? You know, they're looking around like, why are things the way they are, right? And then on top of that, they're going online, they're doing research like, oh man, back in 1944, France killed, thousands of, black men. Oh man, back in 1899, man, they marched in and killed a whole damn village. Oh man, back in, 1855, right? So you're doing the research like, damn, these folks committed these massacres and they massacred our ancestors. Oh shit. So these people are our enemies. Oh, so that's the revelation that a lot of African youth in recent years, and especially in Francophone Africa, have came to, right? They don't have the same reverence and admiration for France, or La France, like the previous generations did. They might not have had access to the information, right? But that's what it is. But going back to Macron, man, like I said, our enemies are so arrogant. And like I always say, everything they do, they try to rebrand it and present it as if they're doing charity, right? None of this is charity. Everything is, I'm doing something to get something in return of greater benefit. But they're going to frame it and sell it to you as charity, right? I'm doing this for the good of civilization. They've always been running the same scam and same play for centuries. I'm doing this for the good of civilization. You're in slavery because I'm trying to improve civilization, right? I'm invading your territory for the good of civilization. Everything they do, they try to sell it as if this is a net benefit for civilization. Doesn't matter how many people die. Doesn't matter how many people starve. This is for civilization. Anyways, man, run the footage.
And towards whom we must help with training, help with equipment, help with intelligence, help for specific operations.
Now, France says that we are here, to help with military training and military capacity and military intelligence, right? The same France. You have to understand the irony of him saying that, right? The only reason France has a presence on the continent is because you launched attacks against African militaries. You dismantled the established political structures that existed in the region before your arrival. That's the only reason that you have an influence in the region, is because you destroyed everything you want to come back and say you want to help establish. Man, it's crazy, brother. It's crazy. Here's the reality. When they say we are here to help with all these military capabilities, they're not here to help you to defend your sovereignty. They're here to help you to protect the regime that's in place. Now, of course, as a diplomat, he has to give all these, eccentric speeches, all these ambiguous speeches. But at the end of the day, man, you talking out both sides of your goddamn mouth, bro. Anyways, let's jump into some of these articles, right? Macron sees a new role for the French military in Djibouti, right? So they done ran that boy out of Mali, Burkina Faso, with Niger, ran that boy out of Chad, ran that boy out of West Africa. Now he got to go to Djibouti, right? Made that boy retreat to Djibouti. Ha! And to send that boy back to Djibouti. I mean, no offense to Djibouti, but, to go from having a military presence, having military garrisons all over the west coast of Africa to now you've been reduced to Djibouti. Man, that boy done fell off, man. Them boys fell off. Golly. What did 50 Cent say back in 2003? Damn, homie. In high school, you was the man, homie. What the happened to you? Oh my God, what happened to you, bro? What happened to you? You went from the owner to the tenant, right? You went from dictating terms in West Africa, having a monopoly over the resources, having outsized influence over domestic political policy, right? Having a direct line with the leaders, to now you leasing space in Djibouti. Man, you went from the owner to the tenant. Man, you used to own the land. Now you leasing space in Djibouti. Now you renting space in Djibouti. My God. Now you got to shack up, share a room with the Chinese and the Americans out in Djibouti. My God. Them boys fell off, man. And I'm so blessed that I was here to witness this entire time. This entire time I witnessed the fall off from the beginning to end. And I'm still witnessing because you're still falling off as we speak, right? You went from the negotiator to the spectator, my friend. Anyways, Let's get into some of these articles. As you can see by the headline, Macron in Djibouti, facing the end of France's military legacy in Africa. Djibouti, where the French president is visiting, remains home to a French military base with 1,500 soldiers, making it the largest in Africa following a string of setbacks for France in the Sahel, Chad, and Senegal. France's Africa policy is in need of reinvention. Let's get into it. It's a powerful symbol. Djibouti, the former French territory in the Horn of Africa across from the Arabian Peninsula, is the site of the last significant French military base on the continent, and in fact, the largest outside of France. It has withstood not only the decisions of several African nations to end the French military presence on their soil, but also the ongoing review of France's military deployments. The network of French military bases is a historical legacy. No other colonial power maintained such close ties with their former colonies, a system put in place by Charles de Gaulle, as well as Jacques Foccart. For a long time, these bases served as life insurance for regimes that were friendly to France. Now, in that part of the article, when they say that the original purpose of the military bases was to serve as life insurance for regimes that were friendly to France, right? Not to fight terrorism, not to keep you safe and sound and make sure you could keep your doors unlocked at night. No, they were for the regime. They were for the administration that was put in place that was supposed to serve the metropole of France. So if there was any revolutionary energy in the atmosphere, if anybody tried to overthrow the government, if anybody tried to launch a coup or a rebellion, then the French military, on behalf of the government, would come in and suppress the rebellion, right? That's basically the original purpose of the French military bases, and it's pretty much lingered around for decades and decades. For example, if it was 1975 or 1985, even 1995, the coup d'etats that you've seen happen in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, for example, when the military took over the government, that might not have happened decades before, right? Back in those times where the French government would assassinate a president in broad daylight, right? They were way more brazen back in those days. Like, for example, let's say it was 1992 and Assimi Goïta tried to come to power in the coup d'etat, right? The French intelligence would have already been on him early, bro. They would have already infiltrated the military. They would have arrested Assimi Goïta before the coup even began. Assimi Goïta would have been arrested before the coup even began if it was like 1992. You would have seen French soldiers who were stationed in Senegal, French soldiers in Côte d'Ivoire. They would have deployed in the capital of Bamako the same day. That's how France used to get down back in the day. That's how France used to do it back in the day, right? Goïta would have been killed and the president would have been restored to power in less than 72 hours. And then everybody would just go back to business like nothing ever happened. That's how things used to go down. Same thing with Ibrahim Traoré. If it was decades ago, I'm telling you, they would have had French soldiers deployed from Côte d'Ivoire and Senegal and Benin and other neighboring nations. They would have been in Ouagadougou in the capital the same day, and the coup d'etat would have been reversed. Or let's say the coup d'etat was successful, right? Let's say by the off chance it was actually successful, right? What France would have done is they would have went to another faction in the army. They would have went to another faction in the army. They would have supported that faction against Ibrahim Traoré, and then it would have been a counter coup, and then there you go. That's how they used to get down, bro. Same thing would have happened for General Chiani in Niger. Once he would have tried to plot against the government, they would have already had the French soldiers that were stationed in Chad, next door in Chad, already on high alert. The French paratroopers, everything, bro, they would have been ready to go because they would have had the French intelligence already on the job. And in fact, I believe that the head of the French intelligence was actually fired after the coup in Niger, right? After the coup in Niger, the head of the French intelligence services was actually fired. He lost his job because Macron was like, bro, you should have been on it. Like, how you let this happen, bro? You know that's the uranium spot. How you let that happen? And man lost his job, bro. But anyways, man, as you can see, ran that boy out of West Africa. He had to go flee to Djibouti. Man, that boy flee to Djibouti, shacking up with the Chinese and the Americans and every other goddamn nation. Djibouti like a colony of a colony of a colony. Goddamn. Shout out to Djibouti. My fault. You know, my fault. Shout out to Djibouti. But yeah, man, that's why it's so important that France has been run out of multiple nations. Because if you notice that a lot of these instances, they would have deployed soldiers from neighboring nations, right? So when you got a nation surrounded, not only do we got military bases inside your country, but we also got military bases next door to your western border, to your southern border, to your eastern border, right? We got you surrounded. So because of the fact that France has been ran out of multiple nations, this has reduced their effectiveness by a large level, right? Like I said, you can't descend upon the capital in hours because we ran you out of this country, we ran you out of the neighboring country and the neighboring country, right? So their military effectiveness and their military mobility has been compromised heavily, right? Ran that boy all the way to Djibouti on the other side of the continent. Let's continue. Let's take a look at some of the reactions on social media. This person said, Macron wants to transform the humiliations he received in Africa into victories. Nobody is fooled. Africans are only campaigning for the definitive departure of France and its predatory companies. Amen. This person said, he did not decide anything at all. His mediocrity on the diplomatic scene and in foreign policy has accelerated the process of France's disengagement, and that's a good thing. This person said, he's like the drunk guy at the nightclub who gets kicked out by the bouncer and says, yeah, but I was the one who wanted to leave. Drug abuse is dangerous for your health. Exactly, brother. He is simply trying to maintain a good face, right? It's like when the lady rejects you, you ask for the phone number, she says, get out of my face, right? And then you say, well, I didn't want the number anyway. You ugly anyway, right? You bitch, you ugly anyway, right? That's what he's doing, right? You wanted the number. Oh, baby, you so beautiful, baby. Hey, what's your name? Hey, get out of my face. Bitch, you ugly anyway. That's what Emmanuel Macron is doing, right? That's what he's doing. Now let's continue. This person said, look how he changes the narrative because France is being cleared almost everywhere, which shows that reading history in the sense of the one who had to suffer is important. In a few words, he explains to us that he is the one who wanted it this way. Ha! Ridiculous. This person said, Macron has done a lot for the Pan-Africanist cause. We owe him a lot. Thank you, Macron, for all the mistakes you have made. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Now, yes, I do want to tip my hat to Emmanuel Macron. I do want to show love. Shout out to Emmanuel Macron. Salute to Emmanuel Macron, because it was thanks to your incompetence, right, that you have sparked a fire in the hearts and minds of the African youth, right? Your incompetence and your arrogance and your condescension, right? You are the reason that the Pan-African youth have such a high level of anti-French sentiment, because you are an incompetent leader, right? You are an incompetent colonial administrator, right? You are terrible at what you do. So that's why you have sparked a fire in the hearts of the young African youth. And that is why you have been driven out and you had to go and seek refuge all the way in Djibouti, right? All the way in Djibouti. You sharing a room with the Chinese and the Americans in Djibouti, right? You sharing a room like it's Airbnb. Like I said, back in the day, you had garrisons all over West Africa. You had military installations all over West Africa. Not sharing it with nobody else. Now you got to go all the way to Djibouti and shack up with the Chinese and the Americans. You got to share a space. Look how the mighty have fallen. Used to be running shit, now I be walking. Ha! Let's continue. Matter of fact, it's not only the Chinese and the Americans. Also, the Italians and the Japanese have a military base over in Djibouti. And I think the Saudi Arabians are trying to install a military installation. You see, goddamn, bro, it's like everybody just come get a free military installation in Djibouti. Like that's where you had to retreat, bro. You had to go to Djibouti and shack up with the Italians and the Japanese, bro. The Japanese, who are pretty much they don't even wage war anymore. The Japanese don't even wage war. Didn't the Japanese sign an agreement to basically say that we will never ever wage war? Even they got a military base in Djibouti, and that's who you got to share a space with. Goddamn, bro, look how the mighty have fallen. An embarrassment. An embarrassment to colonial ancestors. You are an embarrassment to Charles de Gaulle. You are an embarrassment to French General Rochambeau. You are an embarrassment to Pierre-Victor Malouet. You are an embarrassment to Thomas Galbaud. You are an embarrassment to Napoleon Bonaparte. You are an embarrassment to General Charles Leclerc. You are an embarrassment. That's what you are, brother. You are an embarrassment to King Charles. You are an embarrassment to Louis XIV. You are an embarrassment to your forefathers that have came before you. How does it feel, my friend? How does it feel? I know my forefathers love me. I know my ancestors love me. But I know your ancestors look down on you with shame and disgust. You are dishonorable in the eyes of your ancestors, because they know they would have killed everything, man, woman, and child. And all you doing is making speeches. Listen, man, it is what it is, man. It is what it is. Let's continue. This person said, I think this is a white man from France. He said this: I'm bad, but it was intentional. Okay, so we call that a betrayal of the nation's interests, right? So even this white man right here, he sees right through Macron's nonsense, right? Saying that, oh, I know that our foreign policy has collapsed in Africa, but this is what I want. So basically, you are against you are betraying the nation's interests, right? Because it is in the nation's interest to maintain influence on the continent. So if you have destroyed that intentionally, then you have committed treason against the Republic of France, which means that you must face the consequences of that betrayal and face those charges in court. Now let's continue. This person said, Macron is even more of a loser. He no longer has any support from the oligarchy. He is no longer eligible. He will go into the dustbins of history. Absolutely. Like I told you, all of his forefathers look down on him with shame and disgust because his forefathers would have been killed the black man long time ago. What? Macron's forefathers would have been reduced everything down to rubble already. Everything would have been reduced to rubble. Everybody who needed to be killed would have been killed. That's how his forefathers used to get down. You know what I'm saying? That's how they used to get down. You see, I know the Frenchman from back in 1802. I know what he do. I know what he do. So when I look at the Frenchman in the modern day, it's like, who is this? Like, what happened to my adversary? Me and my adversary used to have some legendary confrontations. You know, my adversary, I don't know what's going on with him. Let's continue. This person said, in the political history of France, you have never had a president as stupid and condescending as Emmanuel Macron. Well done for contributing to the hatred of France and helping the revolt of certain African countries. Absolutely. Big up to Emmanuel Macron for doing the bidding of the black man. Let's continue. This person said, shout out to Kemi Seba. He said this: one thing is for certain, his arrogance, his uninhibited neocolonial paternalism, his class contempt have been the catalyst for our decolonization struggle. And this is only the beginning. Now, yes, indeed. So Emmanuel Macron, he has made his statements. He has finally addressed the people and finally gave his thoughts on the geopolitical situation and in terms of France's foreign policy. Like I said, obviously as a leader, you cannot come out and say, yes, we have failed the people. We have failed our backers. We have failed our sponsors. We have failed our ancestors. Obviously, you cannot come out and say that. So you have to put on a good face, even though it might sound ridiculous. It might sound foolish. There's a reason why he said what he said, because at the end of the day, you cannot show weakness as a leader. You have to maintain composure as a leader, even in the face of defeat. Even if the ship is capsizing and going into the ground, you're about to drown, you must maintain your composure. You must stand up straight. Look up straight, look forward, and just maintain your composure. That's all you could do, right? That's all you could do. That's all you could do. So, like I said, Macron is a disgrace to his ancestors. It is what it is. And that's something that he's going to have to face and deal with, behind closed doors, by himself. Like the person said, he's going to go into the dustbins of history in terms of the legendary French leaders. He's not going to be up on the list. He's not going to be very high on the list. He's not going to be next to, Napoleon Bonaparte. He's not going to be next to Charles de Gaulle. He's not going to be next to the legendary colonists from back in the day. Nope. They're not going to be talking about Macron 100 years from now. It is what it is, bro. I'm sorry to tell you, bro. But like they said, thank you for everything you've done for us, bro. Thank you for everything you've done and continue to do, for sure. For sure. Your arrogance is the fuel for our sovereignty. Now, anyways, man, it's your boy Nevercard. That's Elaine back in the Billy. Yes, indeed. Cash App in the description. Support the channel, man. Support the album. Peace.
No. Feel like I'm 75. Know that your team be full of them traders. You know that can never be mine. I'm grabbing a thought when I drive. I'm back in my zone and we on. She said that she ready to come be my wife. Yeah, hoping I don't do her wrong. I gave her my word and it's bond. I'm whipping the best like a lamb. I'm eating no chicken and lamb. Accustomed to call me the man. I never be up on the gram. I'm keeping that way undercover. She want me to tell her I love her. I told her I'm breaking the rules. I told her we making the news. Back in my city, they loving me. Standing alone, I'm 100 deep. Enemy plotting and still in reach. They try to make sure that we underneath. Trying to make sure that we never make it. Coming for power, come get acquainted. Coming for everything that I wanted. Feeling like Drake, but I really wrote it. Feeling like Kendrick, I'm checking names. Gotta roll up while I go insane. Got so much stress, I been gained weight. Stuffing these racks in this Louis case. One thing for certain, I'm about to check. Keep it 100 and nothing less. Stick with the family since day one. Had to stay down till my day come. Had to stay down, but I'm never patient. Hop on the mic and I'm motivated. Hop on the mic and I drive a classic. Haters can't see me, they copping glasses. Back in the studio making magic. Got a new tape and it's in production. Back on my business, I got a budget. Staying low key when I'm out in public. Feel like I'm 75. Know that your team be full of them traders. You know that can never be mine. I'm grabbing a thought when I drive. I'm back in my zone and we on. She said that she ready to come be my wife. Yeah, hoping I don't do her wrong. I gave her my word and it's bond. I'm whipping the best like a lamb. I'm eating no chicken and lamb. Accustomed to call me the man. I never be up on the gram. I'm keeping that way undercover. She want me to tell her I love her. I told her I'm breaking the rules. I told her we making the news.